Today, we are joined by one of the most recognizable voices in alternative music history, a radio legend, a book author, a DJ, and now the host of Howard Jones's massive 2026 Things Can Only Get Better tour. We're joined by Richard Blade. Hello, Richard.
Hey, Jay, that was quite an open. I can retire now, happily.
I learned from the best.
Thank you.
I read your book, World in My Eyes,
Yep.
aptly named after a great Depeche Mode song. I know you're a fan as well as I. Your book was an incredible insight into your life, and I learned so much about you. And I feel like when I met you personally, I knew you already because of the book. Um, Tell me about your book writing. I mean, is that something you always wanted to do? Because not only do you have an autobiography, you've also got a couple of fictions as
Yeah,
well.
five novels. What? Yeah, I had always wanted to write a book. My brother had written four books. The first one was a huge bestseller called The 400, and that came out. He was older than me, 7 years older. He's passed away now. It was called The 400. And in 1979, he got a huge deal from Simon and Schuster to publish it, and then almost immediately from Warner Brothers to make it into a movie. And it was about four people who robbed the Bank of England, two Americans and two Brits. And it was going to be a huge movie. The cast was going to be Roger Moore and Sean Connery, first time they'd worked together.
Wow.
And then there was two American actors who were just coming off two huge movies. And the second one was a robbery movie, so they wanted to do one more. And the movie was The Sting, and it was Robert Redford and Paul Newman. So the cast was lined up: Robert Redford, Paul Newman, Sean Connery, Roger Moore. My brother was over the moon. And then a movie called Heaven's Gate came out and crashed the box office. 3 days it closed. Warner's lost like 70 million, and they canned every big movie and just went to small movies. So my brother stuck to writing books. And so I wanted to write books, but I didn't want to kind of step on his toes and compete with him. And after he passed away, I thought, okay, now's my chance to write and, in his memory. And so the first thing I wrote was World in My Eyes, because I figured I could write an autobiography because it was my story.
Right.
And then after that came out and became, and I couldn't believe it, an out-of-the-box hit. It was just massive. I thought, I'm going to write a novel. And I'd had a few unproduced screenplays lying around. I'd had a couple made, but I had some not made. And I thought, well, there's one that's great. I love this Roman story. And so I wrote SPQR as the first novel, when SPQR is the symbol of Rome, Senate Populus Qui Romanus, Senate and People of Rome. And so I wrote that as an alternate history one. And that did really well. And so then I wrote Imposters, based on a true story of a buddy I worked with at K-Rock, and then Birthright, and then Ghosts of the Congo, and then finally Slapton Sands. I've got one more novel in me. I'm just trying to work out what to do. I'm not sure to do an alternate history science fiction, romantic comedy, or the book version of a movie I did for Lifetime called Long Lost Son. One of those three. And then I'm going to do the sequel to World in My Eyes.
Your book, World in My Eyes, was really great. And one of the stories that stood out to me was when you put on your superhero cape and jumped into the ocean current to return two people who had let go of the line and were surely being swept to their death. Can you tell us more about that situation?
Yeah, when I quit K-Rock, it was to move to the Caribbean. The wife and I had bought a place in St. Martin in 97. And we were planning, okay, when do we leave? When do we leave? And everyone was talking about Y2K, the world's going to end, the computers are going to shut down, planes are going to fall from the sky. We knew it was rubbish. But we thought, oh, Y2K would be a good out. So I left K-Rock at the beginning of 2000, and we moved to the Caribbean and ran a dive boat. And during one of my very first times when I was learning the dive sites, because you don't want to take people out on dive sites that you don't know, because you want to be able to show them where the lobsters are and the eels and the sharks and all that kind of good stuff. The guy who was showing me took me in on, and there was a hell of a current running. I mean, really bad, because St. Martin's in the Eastern Caribbean. It's where the Caribbean meets the Atlantic. And so you've got two big bodies of water together, and you can get really tough currents there. And this couple got caught in the current, and they were the last two up from the bottom. And one of the husband was very heavy. He was pushing 350, 380 pounds, I would say. And the wife was really skinny. It was, kind of the odd couple. And she wouldn't leave him, and he wouldn't listen to me. And he was burning through his air because of his size. And I knew I had to get him up. And suddenly they were just going in the current. And it was crazy. The only thing I could do was just to stay with them and try and get them up onto the line. Because if we'd missed the line, I don't know what would have happened. Because if he'd had more air and been more responsive, more listening, I would have said, let's surface, we'll inflate our BCs, the life jackets that you have, the buoyancy control devices, and we'll put our regulators in because the current was so much, there were waves breaking. And if you had your regulator out, you'd be swallowing water and you'd drown on the surface. Right. And if he'd been a responsive driver, I'd have said, let's float, regulators in, we'll have plenty of air because we haven't got pressure on us, so the air will last a long time, and the boat can come and pick us up. He wasn't responsive, he wasn't listening, so I knew we had only one thing I could do, get him onto the line and make sure he stayed on the line. And it ended up with me clipping his BC onto the line so he couldn't let go, couldn't get off or anything like that. It was crazy, and that was my first dive there.
Oh my God. Well, way to dunk your head into the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy.
Welcome to the island. Now go save these people.
Yeah. Many great stories in there, including a relationship that you had with Berlin's Terry Nunn. Which I did not know that at all about you.
Yeah, and that one is one of the most popular chapters. That one and Mad World, the death of my father, which sounds weird that people resonate with that, but I think everyone's had tragedy in their life, and so they relate to that. But the Berlin chapter was quite something. I wrote that and then sent it to Terry, and she said, go ahead, it's true. And she's writing her own book now, so I can't wait to read her viewpoint on it.
So the name of the book is World in My Eyes, because you, in fact, are a fan of Depeche Mode, which I am as well. Oh. Yeah. And you are credited with actually kind of bringing them to America as far as sound goes. Your position at K-Rock in Los Angeles positioned you to play music to millions all at the same time. Do you accept that credit as being the Depeche Mode bringer to the States?
I don't know if I was a Depeche Mode bringer, but I definitely stayed on top of them. Yeah. And my father would send me because I'd been a DJ in Europe, so I was getting all what they call the white labels before they were released. And because of America and the UK having a gap of 2,500 miles, and back then before internet, etc., though Depeche Mode records would get released in America, they wouldn't get released at the same time. They might come out in England in June and then not in America until the following January. But my father would send me the really cool stuff. He had a great ear. So he'd say, you'll like this one. And so we would get the white labels way ahead of time and be able to play them on K-Rock. And people were like, oh, well, where can we get Depeche Mode? And suddenly the import market in Southern California exploded because people were listening to K-Rock and hearing these imports that my dad was sending and then asking the record stores. They'd ask Hot Rocks, and they'd ask Tower, and they'd ask Music Plus, can you get these in, please? And if they weren't too corporate, if they were the smaller ones, they would order them from England themselves. And so there was a big underground market, and New Wave exploded early in Southern California.
I remember the days of Tower where you could go and find an import and whatnot, but you would have them a whole, like, pretty much summertime and, fall to shop that and play that to people ahead of time. That's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, one record we had like that was on a label called Bobcat Records, and that was the same label that a song called One More Shot from Seabank came out, and that was in 1984, and it was a song called West End Girls. Yeah. And I started playing that on K-Rock, and then it went into regular rotation, and it was one of our most requested songs for a year and a half, but it didn't come out in America till 86 when they signed with EMI. And then they re-recorded it. And, of course, it became #1 hit, and the rest is history. But that was so many people in Southern California had that 12-inch on Bobcat Records of West End Girls. And so when we started playing it again in 86, they're like, hang on. we've been listening to this for 2 years and you're saying it's new. Well, it is
Yeah.
new. It's just been released,
It's just been released, right? And
Yeah,
then of course
officially.
there were so many renditions, the Shep Pettibone and the
Yeah.
so you are hosting the Howard Jones Things Can Only Get Better tour throughout the summer.
Hmm.
How did you get involved with that?
Well, it's going to be my third national tour with Howard. I
Right?
did one last February with ABC, Howard Jones, Richard Blade. It was the three of us,
I was there.
and yeah, it was great. It was so much fun, and it did so well. And Howard enjoyed it so much, and he was shocked when I did my first set the first night. He was waiting for me at the side of the stage because he thought I was going to DJ. I set up a DJ console and DJ for 40 minutes and that would be it. But I didn't want to because I knew that ABC were bringing their A game and Howard was bringing his A game. I mean, always does.
Of course, yeah.
And so I wanted to do more than just stand behind the console and hit play. So I thought, I'm going to tell a story and use audio and video drops whenever possible and do the history of New Wave, how New Wave exploded. And I did that, and people really, really seemed to enjoy it. And Howard, when I walked off, he goes, I've never seen anything like that. He said, I thought you were going to DJ. And I said, I couldn't, Howard. I said, because I saw you in soundcheck. I know what Martin's going to do. I had to do something good. And he goes, will you come out with me again this fall? And I said, it's only our first night. He goes, I know, but I want you on the tour this fall. So I toured with him again in September, and it was Howard, Haircut, and me, Haircut 100 and me.
Yeah.
And then now this is the third tour I'm doing with him, the Things Can Only Get Better tour. How this one's going to work, I'm not quite sure. I was talking with Howard's manager, Jonathan Wolfson, a little earlier today, who's flying back from New York. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing like 3 or 4 short sets. In other words, like a 10-minute open, and then 10 minutes between modern English and English beat, 10 minutes between English beat and Wang Chung, and then 10 minutes before Howard. I don't know, but I've got, again, an entirely new set ready to go where I'm for me to interact with the audience and kind of play games with them, make them think about what's going on rather than just hit a button and play Small Town Boy, which I love.
Right.
But I don't want to just play background music. I want the audience to be there and it to be interactive.
And that's exactly how we felt, actually. I was there last year. You signed my book. Thank you. And my girlfriend and I loved it. There was no chance to get up and go get concessions because we didn't want to miss the Richard Blade section. It was very crowd interactive. I mean, do you guys remember this?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really, really great.
yeah.
Um,
I'm going to do the '80s year by year.
cool.
So that's all I'm going to tell you. But it's going to be
Okay, yeah.
really fun,
I
starting with
mean,
1980.
You have been to Dallas several times, and that tour that we're talking about, the Howard Jones It Can Only Get Better tour, will be here August 5th at the Texas Trust Theater in Grand Prairie. And you've been to Dallas several times. What is your relationship with Dallas, and do you have any standout memories?
Yeah, I love Dallas. I used to do a bunch of private parties in Dallas. I would be booked to do 80s parties and I'd come out and play. And I always enjoyed the city as well. And one of the first things I went to was the book depository.
Yeah.
I had to explore that, big, I shouldn't say fan of that because it was, a
Yeah.
terrible moment in history, but you know what I mean when I say fan.
Yeah.
And then I went recently again last year and it's all been remodeled and revamped but it's quite something, and Dallas has so much history, and the world knows Dallas. It's one of those cities like Los Angeles or New York. You say the word Dallas, you don't have to say, oh, I'm from Dallas, America.
Right.
As people, like, if you meet a European, you say, where are you from? And they say, oh, I'm from Paris, France. They never
Yeah.
just say Paris. But if you meet someone from LA, they just say, I'm from Los Angeles, New York, Dallas. You don't have to explain it's part of the States because the world knows Dallas.
Do you find that when you travel around the country that some tracks stand out more in different places? And if so, what does it seem like here in Texas?
In Texas, a lot of the what I would call mainstream 80s is really popular. The Duran Durans, the Ahas,
Yeah.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood always gets a yell and people running onto the floor.
Yeah.
People love that. I think also in Texas, some of the fun rock crossover ones
Yeah.
really work well, like the Cult. sanctuary will pull them on the floor. And also in Texas, you can play Drama Rama, anything, anything, where
Yeah.
you can't in a lot of the southern states because they don't know Drama Rama. And the
Right.
same on the East Coast, which is ironic because Drama Rama were originally from New Jersey, but then moved out to the West Coast when Rodney started playing them on K Rock. So it definitely is a good question, Jay. It definitely is location specific. There's the certain songs that cross over that you can keep in your back pocket to definitely fill the floor, like Just
Yeah.
Can't Get Enough and Tainted Love and Don't Go from Yaz. But there's other ones that you've got to go, do you think this is going to work here? And you learn very quickly because you don't want an empty dance floor or you don't want people just sitting there looking at you going, I don't know this song. Yeah, I did a gig last Saturday, a week ago on Saturday in Palm Desert, California. And it was hardcore K Rock. I could have played anything. We were playing deep tracks from Susie and the Banshees, and people were dancing to it.
Yeah.
They were asking for Peter Murphy to dance to. It was absolutely wild. And I loved it because you knew there were so many, at the end of the night, there were so many songs I didn't play that were so
Right.
mainstream. You Spin Me Round didn't get to play it
Yes,
because
that
the
one. Yeah.
people didn't. Metro from Berlin didn't get to play
Yeah.
because people were going for the deeper, darker tracks because that's where they'd grown up and then moved out to the desert.
If you're just joining us, we're on the phone right now with Richard Blade, book writer, radio DJ, superhero, as we talked about earlier. Thank you for joining us, Richard. It's great to have you on here. I want to ask, are there any new projects that you're working on? Are you writing anything new? I think you alluded to the fact that you were in the beginning.
Well, there's a couple of things I'm working on.
Yep.
One is the next novel. I'm just trying to get that lined up and decide which one to write. Whether I write that alternate history science fiction, whether I write a rom-com, or whether I basically take a movie that I had made for Lifetime and write that as a novel. And the other thing that I'm trying to get made is a movie.
Right.
And that's the movie of No More Words. And for a while, we had, Terry and I had a deal with Mark Platt. Mark Platt did Wicked. But Wicked took off and became so massive. And then the spin-off Wicked 2, that our project got kind of pushed to the side. Oh, yours is a small project. Yours is only going to be a $40 million project, not a $300 million project. So it's not as important. And so I got it back, and now we're starting to shop it around again and see if we can get it made. But it's a really cool story. You know, it's about the birth of a DJ and the birth of a band at the same time as New Wave was being born,
Right.
and how our relationship mirrored the explosion of New Wave, and then how I ripped it apart with a stupid mistake. And then many years later, Terry and I reconciling and getting back together. And so it starts in 1980 and finishes in 2003. And it's a really, I've got a great script for it, great script. And I say that honestly, not big-headedly. It really is. It's taken a lot of work, but
I believe so. You're an incredible storyteller, and the book was captivating. I couldn't put it down, and the audiobook was as well. That's an incredible story that you alluded to. I feel like you're probably always writing. You just need to figure out where it all goes.
and even if I'm not actually writing on paper, I'm writing in the brain. It's like, okay, this would be really good, you know.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I'm like, why did they do that? This would have been so much easier to have done. And
Yeah.
then sometimes you watch a movie like maybe a Scandinavian thriller on Netflix, you know, a detective murder, and you go, that's brilliant what they're
Yeah.
doing, you know. Whereas the American might be more mainstream because they, with American production, American TV production, I've done a lot of TV shows, you have too many chiefs, too many people with their input, and they
Right.
don't say, everyone's got to say something. So you start with a great idea, and then it starts to get ripped apart, and what you're left is just a shell. And so I think the European ones tend to be more writer and director specific. They
Right.
don't have to worry about the executive producer's wife putting in her 10 cents so she can
Yeah.
get her name in the credits.
You're surrounded by music, not just in your life, but also all around you, behind you. What are those records on the wall? What are we looking at?
Well, these are some of the albums that I've been given by the artists. They're gold and platinum RIAA albums. Behind me is that one is Berlin. I have to have the
Yes.
Berlin one there. That's Depeche Mode Violator. That's Sting. That's Rio from Duran Duran. That's Pet Shop Boys, Please. That's Catching Up with Depeche Mode. That's Black Celebration. That's Music for the Masses.
Oh my goodness.
That that one is Thriller. Michael Jackson gave me that one,
Wow. Wow.
and then, because I had a video show as well. K Rock didn't
I
play the
remember.
Michael
Yeah.
Jackson, but we premiered Billie Jean when MTV wouldn't play it because Michael was black, and
Wow.
at the time they wouldn't play black artists. But we did the world premiere of it, and then the ones at the top is the 6 Richard Blade flashback favorites CDs. They all went platinum, so I got those presented to me, so that was cool.
That's beautiful. What a great backdrop and
Yeah.
story as well. I appreciate it, Richard. We're pushed for time, and it's been
Okay.
an incredible conversation. The last thing I want to ask you, and we'll get you on your way, is as a lover of music, what 3 records could you just not live without?
Now this changes all the time. It all depends on the mood you're in.
Okay.
But there's one I can't live without, and I'll come to that one last. Right now, can I? Do you want albums or singles?
We can do singles.
Oh God, you would, wouldn't you? Okay, all right, Jay.
If
Pictures
it's
of
easy,
you.
if it's easier to do albums, whichever.
All right, Disintegration from The
Okay.
Cure.
Yes. I got
I
it. I have
want
to
to.
agree with you. That might be on mine as well.
Yeah, I want to say Violator, but I'm going to say The Hurting from Tears for
Okay.
Fears.
Yeah, Tears for Fears.
Love that. And the third one is a single, and it's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. And to me, it is one of the greatest records ever recorded. And I told my wife I want it played at my wake in hopefully about 50 to 100 years' time.
Right.
And it's nothing to do with New Wave. It's Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. And the
Okay.
song is
Wow.
called Mascanada, not the Black Eyed Peas terrible version
Right.
of it. Though I do like Black Eyed Peas, but not that version. The original Sergio Mendes, Brazil 66, Mascanada. I put that on when that comes on because the wife and I will listen to Brazilian jazz at night when she's cooking, and when that comes on, we stop what we're doing and we dance.
Wow.
It's just
Okay. So
a
the
fun,
single, that's what
uplifting
you're
track.
talking about. The song
Yeah,
Mascanada.
Mascanada. More
Yeah.
than this, there is nothing.
Wow. What a great list, Richard. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Man, it's been a great conversation catching up with you. Richard Blade has been joining us for the last 30 minutes. Thanks for joining us, Richard. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.
We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, bye.